Welcome back, Jiu-Jitsu 2000 here today. I'm back with an interesting video for you. Today we're going to process some range scrap lead that we picked up at a different location. I'm going to show you how we can make ingots out of that lead in the field with minimal tools. Now you might be sitting there wondering, why do you want ingots? How come you can't just take the lead as the pieces that it is that you've picked up? How come you can't just take that, put that in a pot and cast lead bullets off of that? Well, the reason I like to make ingots is because when I get home and I have my nice clean lead pot, I don't want to put dirty lead into it. So I like to try to make ingots for that process so that it's a lot cleaner. Another reason I like to have ingots is so that I can calculate approximately how much lead I'm making into bullets. For example, if I have an ingot of lead, I know that it's approximately 1 pound of lead or so, give or take a little bit. So that's another reason why I like to make ingots. Another reason why ingots are important is because you can adjust the alloy of the lead. You can temper or add tin and antimony to the lead and quench the lead after you drop the bullets, and it makes the lead, I guess, in batches easier to add tin and antimony to make harder lead for good bullets. So making ingots, in my opinion, is very good. It's very important. Another reason, they're easy to transfer around. They're easy to put in your pack and hike out, put in a car and take off. Lead ingots are just so much more convenient than having a bunch of loose pieces of lead in a Coke bottle. So let's go. Let's take this lead and let's make some ingots. I'll show you some cool tricks. Hope you enjoy the video. Okay, so I'm getting a nice little fire going here. We're getting ready to process some lead, folks. Over here at this area that I like to come to, I already have a container and I already have a spoon that I found out here. I even have a lid from a different container. But what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to use this container today to make my lead. Probably use this spoon to remove the dross and things like that. So I think that's what I'm going to use. You can also see back here that I have a grid. I keep this grid, I leave it here out in this location where I come to, along with a couple of flat rocks. I use those to cook on. Oh, look at that guy. Hello, buddy. Need to move on, dude. I keep these flat rocks here. There's another guy right there, look at him. And I keep underneath here, I keep a cotton ball. I keep a little bit of paper. And I keep some plastic. You're probably wondering what all this trash and stuff is about. This cotton ball obviously is to take a spark. The paper's to help with that. And this plastic, in a wet type environment, or if I'm having trouble getting a fire going, this could be used as an accelerant to get my fire going. So I keep all this stuff out here at this location. I just kind of keep it all just out here like this. It sits there just like that. Okay, folks, as you can see, some of these lead bullets have a copper jacket that goes all the way around the lead bullet. If I was to put these in the can just like this and try to melt them, the lead will not release because it's being held inside by this copper jacket that's around the bullet. So what I like to do is I like to take a good hard rock, whoops, something like this, with another rock and use it as an anvil almost and bang them. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to rupture the copper jacket This is a bad rock because it's been sitting around the fire. I need to do that so that the lead can come out. Another way that you could do this is if you have some pliers. You know, you could just cut them with diagonal cutters. Anything that you can do to disrupt this copper jacket will help in letting the lead come out. Let me share another option with you that I like to use. Okay folks, right here we're looking at the hitch of my car, and I have a hatchet which has a hammer on the back. This works really good for busting open these copper jackets. Look at the lead just coming out of there on its own almost. So that's a good process that I can use. So I'll set this like right here, or maybe on the ground or something like that, where I can put them in there as I work on them. So I'm going to go through this little container of lead that I've captured, that I've gathered, captured. So if I find any bullets like this that are lead cast bullets, they're not jacketed, they go right into the pot. So when I get something like this, again, this is a jacketed bullet, I just set it on my little anvil there, bang, bang, until I can see the jacket disrupted where the lead can flow out. Sometimes you'll see lead bullets that are jacketed, but they have a hollow base on them right here. The lead will flow out of those, but I usually bang on them anyway. See? I usually bang on them anyway just to make sure. Doesn't take much time and it's very easy. Just bang on them. That really ensures me that the lead's not going to have any problems coming out of the jacket. Another thing I try to emphasize is make sure that you guys are wearing safety glasses, because this lead can fly. If you see a lead that's like this, that's already messed up from the impact, that's fine. Throw that right in there. And in the meantime, while I'm doing this, my fire is being maintained and I'm establishing a very good solid coal bed. If your ball does not have this flat surface, you can put them right here on the hitch, right here. Gives you a nice little anvil. You can see that it clearly does the job very well. Just set them right there. Just like that. You could even put them up here if you want it. I just don't like beating up my hitch. This part is okay because I can replace that if I have to. Look at that, it fell right in on its own. Okay folks, I'm still working on these. I still have quite a bit to do. But in the meantime, while I'm working on these, I'm going to go ahead and pour these into this container. This happens to be not a tuna can, but it's the size above that. This was chicken breast, I think it was, chunks of chicken breast. I'm going to go ahead and pour what I have already into this container, and I'm going to go ahead and set these on the fire and get them melting. The reason I'm not using this container today is because I like to come out here and cook in this sometimes, and I purify water in this. So the container that I'm using is this one, because this is something that I will never ever purify water or cook in. Okay, so if you had a cast iron pan or something like that, that would work out well too. But make sure that whatever container you're going to be melting this lead in, again, I can't stress it enough, it's got to be a container that you will never ever cook or drink or eat or anything out of. Now, just like I mentioned about the container that we're going to cook in, the same applies to the spoon in which we're going to use to deal with the lead. This spoon is a spoon I found out here, and I have used it to eat with before, so I'm not going to use this spoon today. I'm going to use this lead spoon that I brought with me. It's got a little bit longer, thinner handle, and it deals with the temperatures a little bit better. I'm going to use this because that's all I use this spoon for, is lead. Okay, my fire is starting to make a little bit of a coal bed. Nothing too crazy yet. So I'm going to go ahead and lay my grid down like this, and I'm just going to set the lead right on top, and I'm going to let that start to cook. If you were curious as to how I'm going to pick this container up, I'm going to use a simple backpacking pot support that grabs the side of the pot, and then I can use that to move it around. And I can use that to pour the lead and stuff like that. The main thing right here is I want to keep these things off and away from the lead, or excuse me, away from the fire. And I want to just let that lead melt. And to let that lead melt, I need to keep and maintain a very hot fire underneath it. You're not going to overcook your lead. And while I'm waiting on this, I'm going to head back and continue to bang out those pieces of lead that are full metal jacket. Okay folks, don't hesitate to build the fire completely all the way around the lead pot. This is not going to hurt anything. Even if you get a little bit of wood inside the lead pot or pine needles, it's not going to hurt anything. What'll happen is that wood or whatever that gets inside the lead pot, the lead melting temperature is hotter than the wood's melting temperature, and so the result of that would be that the wood would melt off. It'll actually be nice in some ways because it'll be like a natural fluxing of the lead, which cleans it. So don't worry about it. Just make sure that you get that thing nice and hot. I'm going to go continue to work on smashing, and I'll be back. Okay folks, let's take a look and see what we got going on here. I'm going to move some of this wood out of the way here temporarily, because I want to see what we got in the pan here. You can see that some of the lead is starting to melt. Yeah, it's looking good. Once you establish some molten lead, things take off pretty well. So it's looking like we're doing pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and add this last bit into the mix here. These little bits, and I'm going to just kind of mix them in. Once you establish some molten lead, it helps the process tremendously to melt the stuff around it. So once you get that molten point, it's pretty much downhill from there. Things generally take off and go pretty well from that point. So I'm just going to keep heating this thing up all the way around. Let my utensils here cool, and we'll see you in a minute. Let's just add a little bit of fire. This helps out pretty good. Again, like I mentioned earlier, don't panic if a little bit of this gets into the pan. It's not going to hurt nothing. So we're just going to build a nice little, you could even build a fire right over it if you wanted to. So we're going to let that cook. you want to be very careful not to put anything wet into the molten lead. If you put anything wet into the molten lead, that the moisture and the heavy lead will go underneath the molten lead, and since the molten lead is heavier, it has no way to let the water back up out of the lead. The result of this is that the water that was on the bullets that you threw in, the water has nowhere to go, so it will steam underneath the surface of the molten lead, and then it'll create what we refer to as a steam explosion. And this will have lead popping out of your lead pan. So make sure that if you've got anything wet, that you never put it into molten lead like this, because you'll have a steam explosion. Another thing you want to make sure that you don't do, the smoke that comes from the fire, you don't want to be over that, breathing that, because that can expose you to lead poisoning, and that's not good. You can see right now that I'm using a stick to mix this stuff up. This is working just fine. You can see that it doesn't hurt my stick or anything. It just hardens the point of the stick. No problem at all. You can use stick if you don't have something like my spoon here. So that you can improvise a little bit is what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to show you different techniques and ideas. So we're just kind of mixing everything together. When you start seeing jackets that are empty, you can start tossing them out. I like to use the spoon for that. So when you get stuff like this that's empty, go ahead and remove it. Set it aside. I'm kind of wiggling this spoon because what that does is it gives the lead, any lead that might have been inside the jacket, it gives it an opportunity to come out. If you have a ingot mold, right now would be a good time to take that ingot mold and set it onto the grid so you can start heating that up. If you don't have an ingot mold, you can dig a small trench in the dirt, something like this, nothing too crazy, and you can pour your lead right into that trench. Just something like that. Whatever size, whatever shape ingot you want, just dig your little trench. So there's a few options. I'm going to use my ingot mold, but I'll probably also melt down some lead and show you what it looks like when you make a natural ingot mold like I did over here. So I'm just removing all the jackets, and I'm putting them on the ground for right now. I'm not going to leave them here. I'm going to take them out with me. But I'm going to go ahead and remove all these jackets, and I'll be back. Okay, I got the majority of the jackets out of there. Now I'm going to build a little more fire. I want this to be really good and hot because my lead was starting to get a tiny bit soft. So I'm going to build that fire, let that thing go, and in the meantime I have a small piece of fat wood right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to break that fat wood up, and I'm going to just pour it inside the molten lead, and I'm going to mix it around, and what's going to happen is that'll help remove the impurities from the lead. It'll soak itself, it'll attach itself. You could also take a small spoonful of ash or coal, something like this, just dump it right into the lead. What'll happen again is it'll remove the impurities from the lead, and then you remove all of this material as dross. This is all the impurities that pulled out of the lead. So you want to mix. Be careful not to splash the lead, because when it's in this molten state, it's very hot. Again, the melting temperature of lead is approximately 650 degrees, so you want to be extremely careful. Again, I know I mentioned it earlier, don't let any sweat drip off your nose and land into your lead pot, because you'll have a steam explosion on your hands. If you have a candle or any kind of candle wax, That works as a good fluxing material, and what I mean by fluxing is a material that will help clean the lead. You can see that I'm just scraping and I'm bringing up more dross from underneath. It floats to the surface and I'm just throwing it in the fire pit. This is all the impurities. We're basically trying to get this lead as clean as possible with what we have at our disposal right now, which isn't much. So we're out in the field doing this. So punkwood works good as flux. Sawdust, if you have any sawdust, things of that nature. They work really well. That lead's about as clean as it's going to get. Again, made a little splash there. If that happens, just let this thing solidify and then put it right back into the lead pot. We want to keep mixing this stuff because we're trying to stir up the dross and get the junk out. We're just about ready to pour, folks. The reason I want my ingot mold nice and hot is because if my ingot mold's cold, I'll get layers of lead. If it's hot, I'll get a nice fill, a nice beautiful ingot. So let's go ahead and pour that first ingot into the ingot mold that I brought. Cool thing about ingots is it's a very clean operation, so that when you go to do your bullet casting, you have a very nice clean lead that you're going to be using. So let's go ahead and grab this. We'll lift it up. It's kind of heavy, and I'm just going to pour right into my mold. You want to try to make sure that your mold is on a fairly level surface. So there's one ingot right there. From here, I'm going to take a towel. I have like a nice cotton towel. I'm going to let this thing solidify a little bit, but I'm going to pull it off. I want to get it off of the fire, off of the heat. Now, I'm going to talk about that primitive ingot. How do we do that? Okay, folks. Right now you can see that I've dug a small hole in the dirt. I want to make sure that I clean this as much as I can and kind of pack the dirt up around to make it the type of shape that I want it to be. Hopefully you can see that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just pour my lead right into that crevice, and that's going to be the shape and size of my ingot. So let's take a look. I'm going to pour a little bit of lead in there. There's a little bit of moisture in the ground, but that's okay. You'll see some steam and stuff, but you probably won't see any steam explosions. So I'm just pouring away. Don't worry about the dirt and stuff on the top. That's not that big of a deal. That'll all come off. You notice it's acting like dross. So you can remove those things if you choose to. Try not to disrupt the dirt. I'm going to grab this and put it back into the pot because that's still good usable lead there. And so from this point, I'm just going to let that baby cool. It's going to take a little bit of time, and then once it cools, I'll dig it out, and that'll be our ingot. Just a simple hole in the dirt, nothing fancy. Okay, folks, these jackets have had a little bit of time to cool. I have a piece of paper here. I'm just going to pick them up, put them in the paper. Don't worry if I get pine needles and dirt and stuff. What I'm doing is I'm going to take these jackets and I'm going to save them because I'm going to take them to my local recycler. They love copper. And the reason the copper didn't melt is because the copper is a higher melting point temperature wise than the lead. So that's why they floated to the top. So I'm just taking all these copper jackets, get rid of the pine needles or whatever, and I'll be taking this home, and it's going to go to the recycler, and he'll be happy. So we've left nothing behind. Everything's nice and clean. We have a nice package that we can take to the recycler. These ingots have had a little bit of time to sit. They are a bit cooler, but not yet cool to the touch. But they've had time to solidify. And so now I'm going to take them out of their molds. You can see that I have my spoon, which I might need to use to dig, and I have my rag because this stuff's hot. This is basically going to be my pot holder, for the lack of a better description. So the first one is this one. I'm just going to take this and flip it upside down. Let's get this ingot mold out of the way. And there's our ingot. It's not really hot with the rag, but with my hands it is. So there's the first ingot. Very nice, very clean looking. That's a good looking ingot of lead. I'm going to set this on the rock over here. Now let's dig this one out and see what it looks like. It's had a little bit of time to sit in the dirt. What I want to do is I want to kind of brush it off and kind of clean it up a little bit. You can see that there's not that much dirt that went with it. And even if there was dirt that came on it, that dirt will easily come off if I wash it, or when I put it into my melting pot, it'll come off to the surface of the lead as dross. The whole purpose of this video today was to show you some options on how you can make ingots with minimal tools over a fire out in the field. So I'm going to set this on the rock. Let those babies cool, and we'll be back. If there's any lead left over in the hole, I'll kind of dig around a little bit and search for it, and if I find some that's significant, then I'll take that lead and I'll put it back into my pan. But I don't see anything real significant. I see tiny little pieces here and there, so I'll keep those, but I'm looking for chunks of lead, not just little shivers of it. So I'm going to cover that area up. Looks like I wasn't even here, folks. There's a view of my ingots that I made today. In the video I made one and one in the dirt. So I made these two on the left. These other two are cool to the touch. I made them off camera, and I wanted to show you this. You can see that this thing formed in layers. You see that? See that, how it cooled and it made these layers? That's because when I made this one, my ingot mold wasn't hot. The same thing kind of happened with this one. It melted in layers, it dried in layers. Again, my ingot mold wasn't hot. When you look at the one from today, you can see that it didn't do much of that. Tiny bit over here, but not much of it. That was because my ingot mold was over the fire. It was nice and hot, and it was ready to accept the lead. So that, my friends, is my video for you guys, how to make lead ingots over a fire in the field. I hope you got some good, useful information out of this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Please feel free to leave comments down below. Like the video, share the video. Take a look at my Facebook page and give that a like. Don't forget to subscribe. And have a beautiful day, everybody. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye now.